Okay, so hi, good evening. I'm going to start the class for today. I'm recording this before we are not going to be able to be in class. So again, this is going to be the recording for the third class. We're going to continue working on the lessons that we have for this last course that we have together. And we are going to cover two or perhaps even three lessons. This is going to be kind of quick, right? I mean, in the sense of we already know these structures, at least most of them, and this is just going to be reinforcing the knowledge, being sure that this is clear for you. Again, as you're not here, I cannot verify that directly, but of course, you can let me know after watching the class, after taking a look at the contents that you have on Pearson, if you have any questions about the two or three structures that we are going to cover today. All right. And again, it is very important also to finish these lessons. In that way, we're going to be able to practice with some extra things. Look, before this, all right, the classes that I used to give here at Executive English were different. They were called modular, all right? And it was different. Why? Because each course was like 1 month. And of course, it was way, way longer than this new program. But we had the chance of working with a lot of extra things, all right? Like just conversations, reading, some listening, a lot of extra things that now you have to work on your own. And if it's possible, we can do it here. But again, the thing that I have to do here is to cover the contents. And by doing that, sometimes and most of the time, we don't have a lot of extra time to, well, to work with those details. So right now, again, by covering these two or three lessons, perhaps we're going to have the time not only to work on the TOEFL, because even though, right, it's been hard to work with something extra, we've made it, right? And we managed to do it. And we were practicing in a very interesting way. And I think that's going to be very useful for you in the preparation course. Because remember, here, actually, I don't have to show you that because it is not part of the course, all right, by itself. But once again, it's very important because you have a very, very, very good level. So here, just taking a look at the lessons is not something that is going to give you a lot. All right. So again, then now I'm going to cover these contents so that afterwards we have the time, at least being the last course, to work. We have the time to work with some reading exercises, at least reading some interesting articles to have some vocabulary, to try to do something with that well, knowledge that we might gain with those reading exercises, to write about it, to have a conversation about them, and so on and so forth. But okay, that being said, let's go to and let's start what we have for today. So the first lesson, a very simple one and actually very interesting, all right, and kind of weird, because now we see the present real conditional, that it's easier than the past and real conditional. But I believe they showed the past first because it is in connection with wish. And also, not long ago, we took a look at the past perfect, right? So those structures, it is over there. So I believe that's why they decided to start with the past and real conditional. But the present and real conditional, right, it is easier. And of course, it's not something that is like, uh, it's not something that you're going to get to know naturally if you don't learn it in this way. And if you're not related or you don't have a good connection with English, right? You didn't bond with the language. Why? Because the structure is not that logical. It's kind of interesting, but we have to use right verbs and structures that are not actually the real thing that we use, for example, in Spanish, because we use different structures like the subjunctive. But in English, we don't have that. So the subjunctive is just using some other conjugations that we have. For example, in this case, the simple past, to replace, right, the structures that we don't have. Okay, so we use structures that we have to work so that they can work as a substitute for those that, again, English doesn't have. But what would you do if you were rich? Here we can see the structure that is, give me a second, okay, would and where. These two elements are key over here, right? Would as part of the possible result, and where the simple past part of the conditional clause, right? So what would you do in a hypothetical situation if you were rich? So if I were rich, condition that is not true, that's why this is unreal. If I were rich, I would what? Buy a house, buy a car, travel around the world, buy a piano. All right. So what would you do? That's the unreal result of an unreal condition, right? This is not true. Perhaps it is never going to be true. All right. And again, we also call it unreal because it's not possible. It's not just our decision to change that, at least not for this present, right? If you say, if I had more time, but you don't have more time because you have a lot of things to do, you don't change that immediately unless you are very radical and you decide to quit your job, to leave everything behind, and to have all that time just for you, right? But again, that's usually when you say, if I had more time, it's not because you are going to do that. No, because actually you're not going to do it because you're not even thinking of that possibility, but you're just thinking of would what you would do, sorry, right? You're thinking of what you would do if that situation, right, you can say in this case, were true. Okay, so again, I'm just going around there because it has to be very clear, and it has to be mainly, all right, mainly it has to be clear that this is not something that you use for things that you can do immediately. If that's the case, just use the present real conditional. For example, if I finish my assignments now, I will go to the party. So you say that if you know that it's possible for you to finish your assignments and then you can go to the party, right? But you don't use that with this tense because that's possible. So it's not unreal. It's something that you can still do. This is just for something that is not true now and is not going to change, at least not that easily. Okay, so what else? Where would you travel if you had a plane? Right, you don't have a plane now. It's very, very unlikely that if you don't have a plane because you don't have the money, you would get to have a plane and suddenly you will travel around the world, right? That's not possible. At least it's not that easy. And at least if it were that easy, you would do it and you would use a different structure, right? You would say, if I have a plane, right, I will travel. Then perhaps again, the logic over there is kind of the same, but it's not showing that idea, that little detail of that's not possible. All right. So here you say, if I had a plane, I would travel, I don't know, right around the world. I would go to Europe. I would go to every country in the world, right? I don't know, right? You can imagine because you're playing with just hypotheses with possibilities. Then you have the formula. As always, you have the possibility, right, to invert this. You have if I, simple past. Where is the subjunctive form of be? So we can use was, but the best option is where, right? So simple past, be, where, or other verbs in past, plus then you have the second part divided by a comma, right? That is with would, mainly would. You can use could, might, but would is always the best option. And you can invert that, and you can start with would, then the if clause with simple past. All right, so that's pretty simple, right? This is the standard way. If subject, simple past, complement, comma, subject, would, base verb, complement. So if I had a car, comma, I would drive to different cities every vacation. But the reality is that I don't have a car, so I don't drive. All right, so I don't do that. What I'm saying I would do, I don't do it. If I didn't study that much, I would fail every test. But I study, all right? I study that much, let's say, so I don't fail, right? I pass every test. Then if she felt sick, she would tell us, I know her. So she doesn't feel sick actually, right? So that's why she's not telling us about it, because she's good, all right? She feels good. Then when to use it? And this is the inversion, right? It's exactly the same, but here we don't use comma when we have the if clause in the second part, right? The condition. So again, just the last one, or yes, the last one. She would tell us if she felt sick. That's not the case. That's why that's not a reality. And again, it's not because you are going to change that or you can change or you cannot change that. No, it's just because you're describing something, right? You're describing how the present is, but like in the opposite way, talking about possibilities, all right? Not actually possibilities, hypothesis, right? In this case, it's not a possibility, it's a hypothesis of what you would do if something were in that way. Then we use it, as I was saying, when you want to talk about things that are not real and that can't be different now, right? That's key. To give advice to someone, so very, very commonly you say, if I were you, right? So if I were you, I would accept that job. I would accept that offer. So I'm not you, it's impossible for me to accept the offer that I don't have. But if I were you, I would do it. So you should do it because you can, right? So again, to give advice indirectly or actually directly, but we say that indirectly because you're not saying you should. It's just like you're putting right in that person's shoes. And to make hypotheses, as I said before, to imagine a different result under different circumstances, right? Things that you cannot change, but you can imagine the different results that it could have. So, for example, right, once again, to finish and go to the next lesson, what would you do if you found a wallet on the street? This is not true, and it's not going to happen now unless there is a coincidence, right? But it is not. So you can say, if I found a wallet on the street, I would look for the owner, right? Look for the ID, post, right? The picture of the ID, right? On the social network, try to find the owner, go to the radio, go to the TV, and right, make that public so that the owner can go there, right, and collect its possession or his or her possession or their possession. So what would you, oh sorry, how would you feel if you failed on your test, right? Again, not real, but if you say something like, if I failed on my test, I would feel terrible, right? I would feel pretty bad, or I don't know, right? Again, things are not true. And this is what I was saying about be. The subjunctive form will always be were. But if you say was, it's still correct, but grammatically speaking, it is not going to be the best option. So if I were, if she were, if it were once again. Okay, there you go. That's one. Let's go to the next one. Again, I'm going to make this quick so that you can watch everything directly. Then you can practice or let me know if you have questions the next class. Past perfect continuous. So the past perfect continuous, we already covered the past perfect. It has the same logic, right? The exact same logic. The past of the past, the first event, the earlier event, always. So what's the difference? As every time you use the continuous tense, your emphasis when you're mentioning that idea is on how it was happening, how it was an ongoing action, in this case, before another action that finished also in the past. So you can see the results only in that past, and you are reporting that, right? It was, well, being your case or someone else's case, that's what you're doing. So review, right, briefly, the past perfect an event that happened before another event in the past, right? First event, I studied a lot. Second event, I took an exam. So I had studied a lot before I took an exam. First action, always the past perfect. Remember, after this word, you use the past perfect. So after I had studied a lot, comma, I took an exam, right? So you can play with the words. Remember that the four common expressions to use with the past perfect, they are when, they are before, right? They are after, and you have one that actually was at the beginning, by the time, right? So by the time, before, actually, yes, by the time, before, after, I'm missing one more, when, right? By the time, before, after, and when. Yes, those four. I was getting confused. All right. So, and in the order that we had that in the chart, it was by the time, when, before, after. Why? Because the first three can be used in the same, with the same structure. You use first that word, then you have the simple past, then you have the past perfect. But with after, as you can see in this example, it is the only exception. And after this word, after, you use the past perfect and then the simple past, right? So had you studied before that exam? And you can say this if that exam happened and it's a past situation, it is valid in that case, right? Of course. But if you say, had you studied for this exam and it's going to happen now, it's not correct. Okay, this is for past. Remember, the past of the past. So yes, I had. No, I hadn't, right? I had studied before that exam. That's why I passed. I hadn't studied before that exam, and that's why I didn't pass or I failed, right? That's again the logic that we are always following the past with the past perfect. Then, had you completed all the assignments before the due date? Yes, I had. No, I hadn't. And again, we can say this if the due date is a past due date. So we know the formula, right? Always had. Every subject is conjugated with had. Then you have the verb in the past participle. All right, so here we have some examples. It says, I had finished my tasks before you called me. She had texted her friend by 11 a.m. yesterday. They hadn't started the assignment when you asked them. We hadn't even watched the first episode by the time you finished watching the entire season, right? So everything is related to past ideas. Absolutely everything, because we cannot have something in present. In that case, the past perfect is not the best option. You should change that to one possible option, the present perfect, or the present perfect continuous, right? Now, the past perfect continuous. As I said, always something, an ongoing action or something in progress. Something that was in progress before another event in the past. So, if the first event is or was, I was eating, then the second is you arrived home. Then, if you want to say that that action was happening and finished before this action, and now you can see the results or something related to it, you say, I had been eating before you arrived home, right? And this is once again just to show how this first event in progress was the first one. And here you have this, right? So something had been happening, then something else happened afterwards, but everything is just in the past context. We don't get to see the present, okay? There's no connection with present. So what had you been doing before you joined the class yesterday? Okay, so you have to tell me an ongoing action that you were doing, but you can say instead of was doing, you can say had been doing, right? Before you joined the class. So I had been anything, studying, right? I had been studying before I joined yesterday's class. Or I had been reading a book before I joined the class. And you keep going with examples. Had you been running before our last meeting? You looked tired, right? So what is the action that you had been doing in what that was in progress before that action in the past also? So here you can say, right, actually here this is a yes no question. You say yes I had or no I hadn't. But if you say no I had, no I hadn't, you can give a different right answer. So you can say no I hadn't. Actually I had been, I don't know, right, not running but perhaps doing exercise at the gym, or I had been walking a lot. All right, I had been walking and it was pretty hot, and that's why I looked tired. All right, so again, you can give explanations, but the idea is what was the action that was happening or that had been happening in this case before another event in the past. Okay, and in this case, it is before. And this is easier because, right, at least, well, for you, it's even easier, right? The past perfect, you know, the verbs, the conjugations. But when you learn this, it's easier than the present, oh, sorry, than the past perfect simple, because here the only conjugation is with the verb to be, that it's always been. And then the present participle is the verb with ing, so that's pretty easy, right? So I had been reading, she had been studying, they had been writing, and so on and so forth, right? That's the logic we have over there. And here we have some examples. So it says, I had been studying a lot before the big day. She had been asking her friends about it. By the time you let her know the answer, they hadn't been paying attention to the class when the teacher asked them asked them a question. And he had been running a lot. That's why he was so tired. Okay, and there you go. As always, you have links to practice or even things to watch to to keep improving and reinforcing this knowledge by yourself. And now we are going to take a look at this. So give me a second. Okay, so this is the third and the last lesson we are going to cover today. Again, it's because we've already worked with these structures in a certain way. But again, okay, if you remember, if you still have questions, we can still have this lesson as we are with a lot of extra time because we're covering this pretty fast. But again, just give me now, please, 1 minute. I'm going to drink some water and I'm going to continue with this last lesson for today. Okay, so let's finish with this last lesson. Perfect modals. We got to see this. All right, if I'm not wrong, we did. Yes, we did. So we are reinforcing this knowledge. Perfect models or past models. And as we mentioned before, they are perfect because we have this structure of have or had. In this case, as we have modals, it has to be have, right? We don't use conjugation after modals, right? So it has to be have always in this case. So it says, let's analyze, right? You should have started before if you wanted to finish earlier. So you should have started. That's our past or perfect model. And it's, of course, a past situation. This can be taken as past advice. That is weird to understand it in that way. But again, if you remember, we said that it is used to criticize something that you did, to, again, talk about past expectations that were not fulfilled, showing how it could have been. So always related to past ideas that, of course, they cannot change, but you're giving conclusions or you're expressing opinion or something about it. All right. So in this case, should is the most common element that we're going to take a look at later on. You could have chosen the other option. It was better. You cannot change that. You're mentioning something that it was possible at that time because you had options. Again, you cannot change that, but you are showing that because of something, right? You have a point. You want to prove something when you say that, or you want to show the person that the person really had other options. And if it's having problems right now, for example, right, I'm just making that up, it's because of you, right? It's like saying it's your fault because you could have chosen the other option and you, right, you chose the other one. So it's your fault that it is like this right now. But the second one, of course, this is something that you can still change. So it says you could choose the other option, it is or it will be better. So you can still, right, choose the best option. So you better think very carefully about it. Now, the UFOs must have visited the Earth, right? But it's better if here we say the aliens, right? UFOs is just like any, right? I'm flying or unknown flying object, right? Not every time aliens. So we can say here in this case, because this is related to aliens, right? The aliens must have visited the Earth to build such an impressive structure, right? But now we know because of science and many things that it's not the case. But many people believe that it was in that way. And if you are very sure about your beliefs, about your opinion, then you can use must, because must is to give an opinion with which you feel pretty confident. All right, you're kind of very, very confident, and you say, it must have happened in this way because it's the only possibility. But it's not 100% because this is not a fact. It's just a conclusion. But again, it's because you feel that you're kind of 99% there. That is just right, whatever thing you need to prove it, to say yes, that's what I was saying, that's why I believe in that it wasn't that way. Okay, but going to an explanation. When you're certain that something happened, or it's the only probable answer, as I was saying, to draw conclusions. So you must have, right, you must have, well, you can of course contract that, right? You must have been tired, you ran a lot. So I'm kind of pretty sure that because you ran a lot, you must have been tired then, right? So again, this is for past. Look at that. Something must have happened here. And you're sure because things are not the way they are supposed to be, right? You see a lot of things. You see a lot of glass right on the ground. You see a lot of people over there, an ambulance. So of course you can say something happened here, but perhaps you're not sure, even though you have all that evidence. If you're not sure, that perhaps even you, instead of that, you can say an accident must have happened. But perhaps it was not an accident. They are, I don't know, right? It's something else, and it was not an accident. That's why you cannot be 100% sure unless you see that directly. All right. But again, it's because you, in a certain way, you feel pretty confident, but you're not like 100% sure. Okay. 99, as I said, there's something that makes you say, or I don't know, but mainly you feel very sure. So might, may, have, when you are unsure, the opposite, right? If you don't know, if you're guessing, as it says over there, use may or might. So you didn't come. You may have had, or you might have had problems, right? I don't know you pretty well. I don't know what you're up to. So I don't know what happened, right? So you may have had problems, probably, or in this case, not even probably. Here is not probability, here is possibility, right? So possibly, right? Possibly it happened. Then she was sad. She may have broken up, sorry, with her boyfriend. Again, I don't know. This person doesn't know. Of course, you can be sad, or she can be sad, because of many, many, many reasons. And that's why this person doesn't know, but she's like, I don't know, right? Shooting. She's trying. And the person is trying to have a conclusion. And that person believes that one of the most common, right, reasons is because of love, right? And you can say that. But again, as we don't know, we can say anything with may and might. Could have a possibility in the past. Again, it's weird to call it possibility because it's not a possibility anymore, but it's to talk about something that was a possibility in the past that, of course, you cannot change now. But you're mentioning because you have, once again, as I said at the beginning, a point, right? You want to prove something, you want to show something by saying so. Okay? Why didn't you study? You could have gotten a better score. So it was your option to study, you didn't do it. And you could have gotten a better score if you had studied. It's not the case, or it was not the case in that specific example. Really, you could have hurt yourself. Be careful. Luckily, right, fortunately, it didn't happen. That person didn't get hurt, but that person could have gotten hurt, right? Or that person could have hurt, you can say, themselves, if you want to be very neutral over there, right? But that's the logic. Something that was possible in the past, you want to mention that because of something. Couldn't, when it's impossibility in the past, it couldn't have been you. It's impossible, right? I know you pretty well. So to me, at least to me, it is very, very, very unlikely that it was you, right? I don't know. They are telling you that you robbed something, or that you broke something, or something that is not, again, an action that that person would do. And you know that, and you can express by using couldn't have. Then should have. This is the main model, perfect model that we use, right? And it is related to what? It is related to advice, expectations, and mainly regrets, right? So you should have, right? Or you should have listened, or sorry, I should have listened to you. You were right. I didn't do it. I regret. You should have, or you should have, no contraction, done. You should have done what I told you, right? You didn't, right? You didn't do what I told you. Now you see the consequences, right? Because I had experience on that, but you decided not to listen to me, right? Or to not listen to me. And well, that's why I'm telling you, I'm criticizing your actions by saying that. And again, it's negative mainly also if you criticize someone's actions. And it's the same idea, also regret, right? You shouldn't have said that. You did it, but as you can see, it's not a good idea that you did it. Or perhaps even you're not realizing still that it was a mistake, that it was not the best decision. So I'm saying you shouldn't have said that. You will see the consequences. Perhaps even this is past. Perhaps you don't see the consequences yet, but it is related always to a past action. All right? And there you go. Once again, with that, we are finishing now. Okay, I'm just going to stop the recording. I'm going to stop with the class. Just a reminder, once again, you have everything on Pearson. Please work on that. If you if you get to need any reassignment, please remember that first you have to communicate that to management. They will let me know if I can reassign that or not. But once again, take that into account. We always have like 8 classes to finish everything, all the assignments, all the quizzes, plus the final exam. Remember that this is our last course. So it has to be actually, in this case, we have to do our best to finish by the next weekend. It means before that next weekend, right? That would be Friday, tops Thursday. That's the day that we got. So that I can send the scores, because next, right after that course, actually this course, we won't continue working together. You might now be right a part of the prep courses, and to do it we need the scores, we need the grades and everything. So again, it's a good idea this time to try to finish everything by that due date that we got. And that's pretty much it. All right, again, if you get to have any questions, if you want to review or cover this once again, at least perhaps not entirely, because I know that you know this one and you have this recording, but if you want to see some specific details and you want to reinforce this once again in a short, even shorter way, and of course way shorter than today, you can let me know. All right, so thanks for watching this. I'll see you the next one. I imagine that it's going to be tomorrow then. Okay, see you then, Matilde. I hope you have a good, well, rest of the day. And well, that's it. See you in the next class.